The Boys is an Amazon show, brand new, and it's about superheroes, baby. And I'm totally fine with that. I know a lot of people like to pretend that they're above superhero movies. Oh, such juvenile enjoyment for simpletons. I would never sully my exquisite palate with superhero movies. Oh, disgusting. But then they still sneak out of the house late at night to go see the superhero movie to get their fix, scratching at their neck like a meth addict, because they're well-made movies and superhero movies are good fun. Unless they're DC movies, then most of the time they're super shitty and you'd have more fun doing anything else. But aside from that, superhero movies are just generally enjoyable, and this show tries to take it in a different direction, albeit it's still not even like an original spin on the superhero genre. It's, what if the superheroes were assholes? What if they weren't infallible good guys? It's a realistic look at what would happen if superheroes existed in our world. And while it's not original in attempting that, it's definitely the best at its execution. It's really, really well done. And definitely the most realistic look at what would happen. The superheroes are egotistical humans. They've been told their whole lives that they're gods and goddesses. It's highly marketed. They're backed by a mega corporation Vought. Every move they make is calculated. They're there to make money. They are celebrities, icons. And that's kind of it. They're big, corrupt assholes, though, behind the scenes. And then a group of boys get together after a traumatic event, and they all try and hunt and take down superheroes to expose them for what they really are, assholes. And also brutally murder them, just fucking fist them as hard as they can. And it's really just so well done. I enjoy it start to finish. At first I thought it was just going to be like a dark comedy with edginess here, oh, here comes some one-liners, blood, gore for the sake of blood and gore, shock for the sake of shock. And there's even a scene with like a failed dolphin rescue that just really kind of screamed edgy for the sake of edgy. But as the show keeps developing, all of this really works in its favor, and there's so much more to it than just edginess for the sake of edginess. All of it contributes to the overall the plot, the themes. It's just really fucking well done. I found myself caring about the majority of the characters. They're really well written in my opinion. I do think some of the dialogue kind of falls flat, like the dark comedy attempts. Carl Urban plays Billy Butcher in this show, who's kind of the leader of the group of boys, kind of the mastermind, the brains behind all of it, the scrotum to the penis that is the boys. And I do have to say, I think some of his lines are just kind of shit. It's like some of the things he says, I'm gonna rip your hands off to shove them so far up your ass that you'll wave at me through your mouth. I think that kind of shit just screams like something he read on Tumblr. Not Carl Urban, obviously. I don't think he improv'd it, but the writers. Just looks like something he would have read on Tumblr for like an incel getting upset about getting killed in a video game. So it doesn't always hit its mark when it comes to like intimidating, badass dialogue, the kind of shit you'd expect a man who eats nails for breakfast and then chugs motor oil. It doesn't really always come across sound and solid, because sometimes you get kind of embarrassing lines like that. But I'd say about 8 times out of 10, you're always rooting for Carl Urban and waiting to hear the next intimidating line he drops to someone, and you love to see the way he handles business. A lot of it does boil down to just Carl Urban being great as Billy Butcher. He fucking kills it in this role. Probably my favorite role I've seen him in since Dredd. Speaking of which, we need a Dredd 2. Carl, if you're watching this, keep lobbying hard for Dredd 2. I'm right behind you, man. I'll be sniffing your farts till the end of time to get Dredd 2 out there. If you haven't seen Dredd, check that shit out. Great movie. But anyway, back to The Boys. I really just love everything about it. Visually, it looks great. For a TV show with 8 episodes, it's really well produced. I can tell they had a pretty decent budget for this, because they made this shit look really nice in my opinion. The CG moments aren't corny like in a lot of shit. So I was kind of expecting to be like CW shit, where the Flash spins his arms and you get like little Microsoft Word fucking particle effects springing off of his fists. But here, the superpowers work really well, except A-Train sometimes. I thought that got a little goofy, but that might just be super speed. I think making super speed work in a movie is super hard, and the only one that succeeds is X-Men with Quicksilver. And the way they succeed is by just making everything else stop. So then he just moves at a normal pace, and I think that's a really clever way of handling it. But the X-Men movies are not very good, the modern ones. That's the only thing they really do right. Here, it does everything right, in my opinion. Occasional missing of the mark with dialogue and shit. Sometimes the decisions the characters make don't make sense, and especially towards the last couple of episodes, the decision making becomes really kind of fucking dumb. It suffers a little bit of anime syndrome in the last couple of episodes. What I mean by that is the anime cliche where a major character has a lot of information that they need to share with someone else or share with the group, and then for an explicable reason they decide not to, just for the sake of progressing the plot and keeping tensions high. You know, the classic, hey, Oni-san, why did you do this? What's going on? And then instead of saying why they did it and what's going on, they just turn their back and say, nothing. Nothing's going on. Even though if you just told them what was going on, things could have resolved right then and there. It's just, I don't like that. That's always frustrating to watch unfold, and you're always kind of rooting for the character to please just say the fucking information so everyone's on the same page and we can go from there instead of having to work backwards, like showing a math problem how you got to the conclusion. I just don't like that. It's just, I feel like it's a little silly. But it's not very frequent in the show. Overall, I just find it to be super enjoyable. It shows you some uncomfortable shit. It shows you some brutal shit. It does get pretty dark. There's not always a happy ending, and I really enjoy that. As far as, you know, the dark, gritty take on superheroes goes, that's not new or original, but this does it the best by far. I enjoyed The Boys start to finish. And I'd also like to say Homelander in this show is basically the Superman, and he's pretty much the evil Superman, kind of what Injustice did, but 50 times better. Homelander in this show is fucking outstanding. A truly great character. Love every scene that Homelander's in. He just controls it. He just fucking grabs it by the tits and twists. He is really a great character. So plugging this shit into the Moist Meter, I'm giving The Boys a fat 90%. I really recommend it. It's 8 episodes, just really good fun. It's not gonna be some thought-provoking piece, you know, going to bed in cold sweats like, man, that really spoke to my soul. But it's just so goddamn fun, and you really do root for the characters sometimes, and there's just a lot of fun shit it shows you with good fights, real bloody shit, doesn't shy away from dark themes. It's just, it does edginess well. I don't like using that word edginess, but it really does describe the show in a decent fashion. It's really just fucking good, though. I really enjoyed it. That's it. See ya. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at The Boys Season 2. Most of you know I fucking love the first season of The Boys. That shit absolutely slapped, so I was really excited for Season 2. And I have to say, it's not as strong as the first season, but it's still very good. Most of the characters are still really fucking great and well written, especially William Butcher. Butcher is still my favorite character in this show. I absolutely fucking love Karl Urban. Karl Urban is my favorite superhero. Like the real world Karl Urban, the actor, he's my favorite superhero. Hopefully we'll see Dredd 2 one day. Love you, Karl, if you're watching. And in Season 2, Butcher is still just as much of like this boogeyman badass who even superheroes come to fear and respect. But you also see a totally different side of him where he has a lot more depth emotionally as a character, I think. As the season progresses, you get to see a lot of different shit from him. And it's not something just totally out of left field where all of a sudden Butcher's like the nicest guy in the world buying Girl Scout cookies and breastfeeding babies at a hospital. It's a very natural progression of his character, and I think it's really well done over the course of the season. I just really like to see Butcher develop like that. It was just really good. I definitely think Butcher was the star of this season. In the first season, the huge standout was Homelander, with an incredible performance from Anthony Starr. Homelander was just one of the coolest villains I've seen. In Season 2, he really takes a step down. He didn't really have that central role anymore. He was kind of reduced to like this sniveling Looney Tunes villain who just keeps getting used by everybody and can't really get anything right. He's constantly outsmarted. He's just not the same diabolical, evil mastermind genius from the Season 1. He's just kind of like this jacked guy at the gym who no one's really showing any respect to anymore. People constantly stand up to him in this season with no repercussions. He just like gets stood up to and then he like cowers away into his shell and then leaves, really. I just can't even really think of any moments in Season 2 where I was like, damn, that's Homelander. That's Homelander from Season 1 right there. Because it really didn't feel like it. He played more of a backseat to some of the newer villains they introduced. And I like the newer villains. I think they were very decent. But they're no Homelander. Homelander in Season 1 was something real special, and to see him kind of fall into what happened in Season 2, it just doesn't really make sense, because he was the king in Season 1. He felt he was God and above everyone else, but in Season 2, he feels like he's like the fucking court jester. He's just not at that same level of, you know, larger than life, the real fucking deal. I don't know, I felt I felt really underwhelmed by Homelander's progression as a character in season 2. And I get it was probably just to put more of the light on the other villains, which is okay because they are good villains, but I would have at least liked it to stay a little more true to what they built up with season 1's Homelander, where he still, when he comes on screen, everyone in the fucking room is visibly uneasy and intimidated. Only a couple times in this season was there anything even remotely like that. It's still a great performance from Anthony Starr's Homelander. It's just I would have liked to see him not kind of play more of a backseat and just get used. He gets absolutely fucking trampled like a doormat in this season by a bunch of different people. And other than that, I don't have too many complaints other than like a few plot holes here and there. Like there's a scene where one of the boys gets injured and has to go to a hospital for a couple days. Well, they're the most wanted people in the entire fucking world. What kind of hospital is going to treat him and let him stay overnight for a few days without reporting it to the authorities? Their faces are everywhere, on every milk carton, on every billboard. Walking into the hospital, there's probably like a news blast playing with their faces on it, and yet somehow they're able to just get hospital treatment for a few days with no problems. It just, there's simple plot holes like that, which aren't the biggest deal. It's a bit nitpicky. But overall, it's still very good. I know I've kind of harped on the Homelander thing, and that's just more of me being a little disappointed with him kind of, just playing that backseat role. But the season is still great. In fact, I really like a lot of the plot twist this season introduces and a lot of the new characters they bring into the fold because it's keeping things constantly fresh, and you're seeing a big overarching universe with a lot of moving parts where, Vought's not the only evil corporation out there. There's a lot of other, very sketchy things going on behind the scenes with a lot of other people that aren't superheroes that are doing some real fucking wild shit. And of course, the gruesome gore is still intact in season 2. Now there's a character that's blowing heads up, just popping heads like fucking balloons. There's another character that just closes their hand and someone just completely fucking combusts. So there's still a lot of gore and a lot of fight scenes and a lot of good action that you get to see in season 2 that I think is executed pretty well. And the last 2 episodes I really thought were very strong, starting with the end of the second to last episode and then the finale. I think both of them set up a really interesting world going forward for season 3, if there is a season 3. It's just something I'm really looking forward to. I've really enjoyed the narrative a lot, and I find myself getting pretty invested in the universe and most of the characters. So yeah, overall, I definitely think The Boys season 2 is still very strong, just not quite as strong as the first season in a few different areas. Anyway, plugging season 2 of The Boys into the Moist Meter, I'm still going to give it a 90% because I do still think it's something extremely entertaining, but there are certain moments where you might roll your eyes at some of the things that develop over the course of the season, and there is some things like if you're already a fan of Homelander, you'd be like, well, why the fuck is Homelander all of a sudden afraid of his own shadow? Like it's fucking Homelander. But overall, it's still really fucking good. It seems more and more often people fail to understand the importance of a quality mattress, and that's why I'm here to talk about Helix mattresses. For a while, I used to have a little morning back pain, and it wasn't until I started to really analyze the mattress that I started to get the sneaking suspicion that maybe the mattress just wasn't right for my back. As a 5'6" man, it's hard to find mattresses to fit that hulking body size. But then eventually I came across Helix mattresses, and I've only had Helix for like 2 weeks, and so far I've absolutely loved it. I haven't had that back pain in the morning, and I think one of the main reasons is because Helix has this little like quiz that you take to match a mattress to your unique body type and sleep preference, so you get like the perfect mattress for your needs. And it's really worked for me so far, so I do highly recommend Helix, and they get delivered to your door for free, and it's easy to set up. It's just no hassle, and yeah, I really enjoy it so far. So if you want a new mattress or are interested in trying it, Helix mattresses have a 100-night sleep trial, so if you're not feeling it after 100 days, you could just send it back and you get all your money back. So if you're interested in a Helix mattress, you can go to helixsleep.com/moist to get up to $200 off your Helix mattress. That's helixsleep.com/moist for up to $200 off the mattress. That's it. So yeah, welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at The Boys Season 3, and it's another banger. This show doesn't miss. Every season is getting better. Like, it's a show that started out amazing and has only gotten better. So right away, Season 3 kicks off with one of the wildest episodes in television history. This is a minor spoiler, I suppose, but it's all within the first 10 minutes of Episode 1. So they're hunting down a bad soup with the power to shrink, and he uses that power for sounding. If you don't know what sounding is, God bless your soul, I suppose. It's putting things into your dick hole. So he shrinks himself down to a very small level and then crawls inside of a guy's penis and gives him a urethra massage. But he had just snorted coke beforehand, and he sneezes, and then expands back to normal size and splits him in half, instantly killing him, sending blood and guts flying all over the place. That shit was so wacky. I would have never expected I'd watch a show where someone's exploring a wiener as if it's like a cave in Indiana Jones or something. It was so unhinged, but it works really well in the show. Like, it was fun to watch. Like, the entire season went really hard. A lot happened, and I think every episode was great. The only one that was a bit underwhelming was unfortunately the finale, which I just watched. I know a lot of people were pretty disappointed with it, and I'll also admit I was a little let down. It's not bad by any means, but every episode this entire season kept ramping up and setting up huge stakes and huge things coming, and then the finale kind of under-delivers on a lot of it, but it puts a lot of pieces in place for next season that I think is going to be outstanding. So I really like where it leaves off, though the final fights as well as some of the later moments just didn't have that same oomph you would expect. And there wasn't even a single time where they went back inside of a cock, which was a little upsetting. Like, they really struck gold in episode 1. Now let's break it down a little bit. I'm, again, going to avoid as many spoilers as possible. This season introduces a new villain, so it's not just Homelander now. They bring Soldier Boy back into the fold, who was basically the original Homelander. He was the face of Vought, and just like the most popular and the strongest superhero in the world, and everyone thought he was dead. However, he's not. He was captured and tortured by the Russians, and the boys inadvertently release him again, so he becomes the main big bad, and it's really good. Soldier Boy is a super interesting character. He's not like as good of a villain as Homelander by any means, because Anthony Starr is one of the most talented actors I've ever seen. Anthony Starr as Homelander is probably the best villain I've ever watched on screen, and I don't say that lightly. But I now cannot even look at Anthony Starr without seeing Homelander. I watched a fucking interview with him in the cast one time, and I just saw Homelander. I thought at any moment he'd turn around and take someone's eyes out of their skull or something if he didn't like one of their jokes. Like, he has truly become Homelander to me, which has never really happened for any other character, so massive props, and he does a great job this season as well, of course. In this season, Homelander's more than just like this over-the-top evil villain. They actually show a lot of human sides here, even more so than previous seasons. They really like do a lot of like heavy lifting to make you almost feel for him and question whether or not like his real motive. Because before all this, you'd be like, yeah, he's pretending to be nice or pretending to be on someone's side, but he's actually going to do something evil. Whereas here, it's like, well, no, he might actually care about Ryan, or he might actually value Black Noir as a teammate and a friend. It's just so good. But anyway, back to Soldier Boy. He's where you're going to spend a lot of the time, like seeing him do shit and learning about him. He's got a very interesting past, and his main objective is, of course, to get revenge for being captured. So he's wreaking havoc, and it just becomes another massive problem for the crew to try and navigate. The writing in this show, I think, is just superb. I think it's so good. They do a great job of making you care about most of the characters, as well as just setting up a really interesting story with a lot of moving parts to it. And it always does try and, like, turn a mirror to, like, the real world, so it'll criticize a lot of things that happen in, like, actual society. And I hate using that word. The Joker's really ruined that word, but like, there's a lot of moments throughout The Boys where it's poking fun at things in the real world, and whether or not you appreciate that or not, that's entirely up to you. But I always find it at least interesting that they subtly jab at, like, all sides of things. I think they do a decent job of not being super on the nose while also still making it pretty comical. But where I think they absolutely excel is in the characters. I think Butcher is such a fucking great character where sometimes you're pumping your fist like, yeah, go Butcher, rip his fucking tits off and shove him in his asshole, let's go Butcher, that's so cool. And then the other minute you're like, damn, fuck you Butcher, this is all your fault, you're such a piece of shit. Like, they have such a great line with Butcher where he's awesome sometimes, he's doing the right thing, and then other times he's really crossed the line and you as a viewer are like, damn, that's too far. And a lot of things that happen afterwards are completely because you're an asshole. You caused a lot of bad stuff because you're an asshole. Like, even though your intentions are good overall, you went too far and you made things worse. I love what they do with Butcher, and I really loved what they did with Butcher and Huey this season because they gave them access to powers. Not a spoiler, it's in the promo material. They gave them access to superpowers, and I think that works so well here. Now it just gives this entire crew more options for handling the problems. So you have people that don't have powers in the crew that are coming up with schemes and plans that are more in the shadows and more like deeper, I suppose. Like they have to be careful about their moves, whereas with Butcher and Huey, now that they have access to powers, their plans more become let's just go beat the shit out of these superheroes, get the answers we need, and just start ripping scalps off. And I actually think that's super cool. And it feels earned because we've spent so much time with these characters, constantly having the odds against them, not being able to actually fight on even footing with the people they try and hunt down or the people they try and save. Now they do have access to powers, and it lets them directly get involved in these fights and just really in the mega mix of things here, and I like that a lot. I really did. I really appreciated that. And it didn't like overstay its welcome where it just became like superheroes fighting each other. They still had to outsmart, outmaneuver, and come up with good plans, but I like that they now have the ability to directly confront their most vicious villains. You know, like they actually fight Homelander, and they don't just get like insta-gibbed like it's Team Fortress 2. They actually can put up a fight now because they have the access to the powers. And I thought that just felt great. I think that was just such a nice payoff to see them actually get to that point to be able to fight. Another standout character this season was Maeve. Maeve had so much to do this season and did a lot of cool shit. Maeve was integral to this season's plot. Like without her, a lot of things just don't happen, and I thought she was great. Just really shined this entire season. Starlight as well, but on Starlight's side of things, it was mainly her use of social media, which isn't super cool, but when she was like not just Instagram living information and like actually contributing to fights and shit, she was great. Like in the relationship between Starlight and Huey, of course, again gets like really strained because of difference in without getting into spoiler, just like a difference of opinion on how to handle Homelander and Soldier Boy. The relationship, of course, is well written. Like I actually care about their relationship. I feel sad when they're not happy together, as goofy as that is to say. I don't know. I just really like everything about the boys. I love the way that they've crafted the narrative. I love the characters. They even do a lot with A-Train this season, showing like the family side of things as well as him wanting to do good but just not being able to. He's so disconnected from like the reality of things. He can't quite figure out how to do things properly. So every time he tries to help, he makes everything much worse. And it's sad. Like the Deep is just again a goofy comic relief character. They don't do much to make you like the Deep. All he does this season is fuck octopus pussy a lot. Like he just gets multiple blowjobs from octopi. Like that's mainly his contribution. Like he's just a dumb character. He's supposed to be laughed at, and he does that successfully. Now there are a couple things I do want to bring up that aren't like amazing with the show. I think that they're using Compound V and V alternatives really like excessively. It seems like they're selling Compound V at gas stations at this point. Anytime they needed Compound V, it was just like a brisk walk down the street away to go grab it. It was never a challenge. Like there was never a moment in this entire season where they're like, damn, we need more V. If only we could go get it. It's always like, we need more V. I'll just go get it. Like, it was never a big obstacle. In the beginning, they set it up like it was really hard to get. Like, this is coveted, sacred serum that, you know, there's not much of it in the world and it's super guarded, hard to come by. Whereas here, it's like, yeah, I've got like 15,000 pounds worth just in my garage. It just, I don't know. I felt like that was a little excessive how often they could rely on it. And they used the V a lot here. And they had to keep going to Vought Labs to get the V. And it was really easy. It seems like all you have to do to get Compound V is just knock on the door and ask for it. So I thought that was a little lazy, though I understand why they didn't want to spend too much time focusing on how they acquire it because that's not super interesting. But you set it up as this crazy compound that's really hard and really secretive. Like, you can't just make it super plentiful all of a sudden. And not to bring up the first episode too many times, but that shrinking guy, I actually do think could have been the strongest character in the show. This goes into like the Ant-Man and the Thanos' butthole thing. Unironically, after seeing it in this episode, I genuinely think that would probably kill Homelander and pretty much any superhero in the show. If the shrinking guy just went inside their cock or butt and then just fully expanded again, I can't imagine, like I don't see how the character survives that. Like even if they're so powerful, like if he goes inside Homelander's ass and tries to like go back to normal size to blow him up, even if Homelander's body is so strong it like kills him inside of him, he's just gonna like internally drown from all the blood and guts from the shrinking man exploding inside of him. Like, I just don't see how any character survives that. So I actually think that could be the strongest character in the entire Boys franchise. Just wanted to bring that up. But anyway, plugging the Boys Season 3 into the Moist Meter, I'm giving it a nice 90%. I would have given it a 95%, but like I said, I do think the finale is a little underwhelming. They set everything up to be absolutely huge to finish it off, and it just really wasn't. Without getting into spoilers, I can't really explain where things start to get a little messy in the finale, but they just make it a little underwhelming. I love where it ends up. I love the final conclusion, where everyone is and everything that's happening to them, I think is fantastic. But like everything getting there is kind of lackluster, which is a real shame because I really thought they were going to send us into season 4 with like this fucking wild bang, and it just didn't quite pull it off. It was just a little weak. But other than that, it's another outstanding season. The Boys is still absolutely crushing it, and I can't wait for season 4. That's about it. See ya. The Boys season 4 finale just dropped, and I just watched it with these peepers of mine, so I'm here to vomit some thoughts on the season as a whole. Throughout the season, I've been pretty vocal that for the most part I found it to be the weakest of the series so far. But with a series like The Boys, being the weakest in this show is like being the least strong powerlifter. Like, you're still stronger than 99% of the population. I still think The Boys is a really good show, better than a lot of shows that come out. I just, for the most part, felt this season wasn't nearly as great as the previous ones. Now, before you bare your fangs at me, let me explain. Previous seasons weren't perfect or anything, they definitely had some ups and downs, but overall I just felt like it was still stronger than the majority of this season. I think the finale of season 4 was spectacular. Like, I actually thought that was extremely hype, and it's got me fucking salivating for the final season. But I'm going to talk about that separately. I want to talk about all of the episodes leading up to it, because I really felt like most of it was like watching filler in Naruto, where it was kind of like padding until the next major arc happened. Which really isn't fair to say, because this isn't like some kind of non-canon mumbo-jumbo nonsense that doesn't tie in. It wasn't just filler, it was just in a state of perpetually building to where the finale eventually takes us. But in the process of building, it kind of lost that sense of danger. Like, there was never any moments in the series, in season 4, where any of the main cast felt like they were in a perilous situation where someone might die, or there might be like real repercussions for a decision that was made or a plan that goes wrong when shit hits the fan. Now, there's no way to really talk about this without getting into some spoilers, so fair warning, but I'm going to do my best to avoid like big spoilers. So what I mean by this is like, Butcher is afflicted with super cancer, the dude is fading away like a fucking fart into the wind, and yet it still never felt like he was actually in danger of dying. And even when plans go so wrong, completely tits up, none of the characters were ever really in mortal danger. Like, it always fell onto someone else, like, who's the leak? And then eventually it ends with Webweaver getting fucking bisected after he comes out of his butt like 6 times in fear. Like, it just never really felt like there was any huge risk to the cast, where previous seasons doing anything directly with the soups was life or death. Like, this is a big deal, but here it's played off almost comedically every single time, with Huey going undercover in Webweaver's garb and then getting sexually assaulted for like 10 minutes. And they play it off as a joke where he gets butt-ass naked and is forced to sit on top of a cake and kegel it in order to sexually pleasure a complete fucking freak superhero. So that's probably like the main reason I felt like this season was weaker than the previous ones, is just because it felt like it almost never really mattered if plans went according to how they were drawn up in the blueprints. You know, whether or not you followed John Madden's playbook here, it ultimately didn't matter because the main characters had plot armor for the most part. So it's not like the biggest deal in the world because it's still a good show. And they did some things that I really did like, especially with A-Train. I think A-Train had an incredible arc in this season, and I'm really excited to see what he does in the final season. Like, they had A-Train go from this almost irredeemable character from the beginning. In fact, A-Train is really kind of the character that kicks off The Boys and pretty much brings all of it to the forefront. And they take this villain and they've slowly developed him into a character that is really well fleshed out. It's a character who, for the first time in their life now, has done something that made them feel like a real hero, as opposed to just this fucking Vought mascot that they pretend is a hero. but is actually just like an awful person. Now, he's really feeling like he can do something good. And it's really cool to see that development. Like, I really think they did amazing with A-Train and his redemption arc. And they also introduced a new character that I think is really good, Sister Sage. She's the smartest person in the world, and Homelander recruits her to the Seven because he believes that she can help him accomplish all of his goals and wildest dreams. And she can. She's kind of the puppet master behind everything that happens in Season 4. She puts together the plan, and even when things don't go exactly how she drew it up, ultimately, things are going exactly how she wants them to, because she is that smart, and she's able to put all of these moving pieces together and just play the game. I also really love what they did with Huey's dad. I'm going to avoid spoilers around that topic, but I absolutely thought they crushed everything about that episode. Like, it was more than just the Huey mother and father relationship dynamic and everything there, but also some of what happened there ties into just an overarching theme of it, and I thought it was just like beautifully weaved into that. I really thought they handled that super well. I thought that was fantastic. And of course, yes, Homelander is still an incredible villain, and in this season, even more so. He doesn't exert his strength as much in this season as previous ones, but that almost makes him even more intimidating because now he's trying different methods besides just brute strength to get to his goals. That's not to say that he doesn't kill people in the season, because of course he does. Homelander probably doesn't go a single day without killing somebody by accident. So there's plenty of scenes of him just murdering people, torturing people like a group of scientists. I mean, he has some brutal slaughters, fucking ripping someone's face off and licking his own asshole with their tongue type shit, like big gruesome things. But that's not what makes him like a scary villain. It's just how great Anthony Starr's performance is, coupled with how well written Homelander is. And now he's got the smartest person in the world by his side, and it's just really interesting. Even though Homelander like snaps at one point and just goes like full fucking like Neanderthal brain and like temper tantrum shit, seeing red, and just goes rogue, off book, no longer following the master plan that's been elaborately laid out in front of him. He's then trying to do it all himself, and that is also still really good. Homelander's just a really good villain, and he's good in this season too, of course. I could go on further for things I liked about the season, but I want to start getting into the things I didn't like that I feel makes it the weakest of the series so far. So one of the main things I didn't like about this season was what they did with Starlight. I have never liked the cliche, the trope of like super strong characters starting to lose their powers, oh no. Like, I just never like when a character gets nerfed, and she's going through that here in a big way. But worse than that, they turned her into kind of this loose cannon. So like, she's very aggressive and she seems very callous. So another thing I really didn't like is that it seems like the relationship between Starlight and Huey is non-existent throughout season 4. Like, they probably only have like 4 or 5 scenes in total where they seem even remotely intimate, and that's in the last couple episodes mainly. But before that, they kind of just look like fucking strangers. They look really indifferent and distant between each other, so that whole relationship seems sidelined. And for some inexplicable reason, she's very unsympathetic towards Huey in even his most traumatic moments, like when he gets sexually assaulted multiple times. She actually even gets mad at him for being sexually assaulted. So this is going to be a big spoiler, fair warning. There's a shapeshifter in this season, and the shapeshifter takes the form of Starlight and imprisons the real Starlight. Huey, of course, doesn't know that, so the Annie that keeps coming home to him every night he believes is the real Annie. He'd have no reason to suspect otherwise. So, they fuck. They steam ham in the bedroom together. Even propose. They even, have a proposal moment. And when the real Starlight breaks free and, sorts all that mess out, she gets mad at Huey for having sex with the fake Starlight. He got sexually assaulted. He didn't know. He had no idea that this was a fucking stranger. That's a sexual assault, and she's getting, furious at him for it. That's baffling to me, because she's also the victim of sexual assault in the show, and yet here, she's mad at Huey for being a victim. That really just rubbed me the wrong way. Now, she doesn't stay mad about it for long. A few scenes later, she does come up to Huey and talk about it in a different way. But even still, just having that at all was just really weird for Starlight as a character. I just really didn't like what they did with Starlight for this season. But with the way the finale ends, I am very curious to see what she's like in season 5. Because the position she's in at the end of this season is totally different. Another thing that really started grinding my gears, and this one's a little more of a nitpick, but it really felt like this season, half of the characters were just perpetually sexual. Like, of course, that's nothing new to the boys. This isn't going to be like one of those moments where your eyes pop out of your skull like, sexual? In the boys? Why, I never. But even in previous seasons with like the fucking hero-gasm and everything, this one just felt like every character conversation somehow tied into cock in one way or another. Like, any time the Deep or Noir was on screen, they would talk about having a boner. So, like, the Deep is talking Noir like, yeah, no, like, murder's super cool. You get something called, like, a murder boner and stuff. You know, your penis fills with blood and it gets big from killing people. And then he gets a murder erection later, and then Ashley's constantly stepping on scrotums, and then it has that whole Huey scene with one of the Soups who's, like, masturbating while telling him to sit on a cake and then getting tickled, and it's just so much. And like half of the dialogue sometimes when it feels like a character doesn't exactly know what to say, they immediately default to saying something like, time to make like my butt cheeks and fuck them, and then break. Like they break the huddle and then go do whatever they were about to do. I don't know, it just like for the millionth time that they said something like that, I just got real tired of hearing it. It was so frequent. Like, so much. And then another thing that I'm kind of indifferent on is Butcher. I love Butcher as a character. But in this season, I'm going to avoid some spoilers around Butcher here, but there was some things with Butcher, and of course what's happening to him, that led to him making some decisions that were really very kind of out of character. But I guess it can make sense given what he's going through right now. And overall, I still think he was good in the season. It's just there were some times where I really felt like he would do things just for the sake of, like, convenience to the plot. I don't know how to really talk around it without getting into the specifics, but overall, I still thought Butcher was great, but with a couple of hiccups that I wasn't too big of a fan of. Some of my other complaints, I think, are a little too specific and spoilery, and I'm trying not to, like, spoil big stuff, though I guess I kind of already vaguely did with one of the things I talked about, but even still, overall, I did enjoy it. I still really like The Boys. I still think this is a good show and a good season. It's just not as strong as the previous 3, in my opinion. But it's not like it's significantly worse or anything either. And I really did like the season finale a lot. This is like the first season finale where things are in a completely different spot than where they began. A lot of the other ones have kind of gone back to status quo. Not this. Not at all. So I'm very excited for the final season. Plugging season 4 of The Boys in the Moist Meter, I'd give it a very comfortable, like, 75%. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. Well, The Boys finale aired, and it's pretty much exactly what I was anticipating. Really underwhelming. The whole final season was unfortunately disappointing. Just a really weak finale, especially for all of the build-up that we've had for years now, and then, like, this season was billed as, you know, Homelander's snapping, it's about to be nuts to butts, there might even be fucking boobies blowing up all over the place, everyone's fucked, that kind of thing. And yet this whole final season felt like the smallest version of The Boys so far. They took something that was, like, really big in scale and, like, dialed it into something much tinier and teenier. It's just, I don't get it. So, like, I won't regurgitate all the points I was making for the first 6 episodes. Instead, I'm just going to focus mainly on the ending, but a little bit of some of the stuff I hated as well with episode 7 getting into it. So let's just dive into the spaghetti and the meatballs. Where do I even begin? I think one of the biggest flops here was, like, the introduction of V1. I don't think it actually did anything. I think it is solely there to set up Vought Rising. When Homelander does get V1, nothing changes. In fact, it feels like it even depowers him. So V1, that's how the Soldier Boy and that original troop are able to survive the virus that was supposed to be like the, basically kill switch for Soups. It doesn't work on Soldier Boy because of the V1, so then that becomes Homelander's new goal for most of the season to get the V1. Then he gets it, and then he wants to make an amusement park. So now we have an immortal Homelander who should be like in prime killing capacity. He's already snapped, views himself as God, and then does nothing. Actually nothing. And in the final fight, he feels significantly weaker than any other time we've ever seen him. So the experimentation on Kimiko to get her to have the Soldier Boy blast, which basically turns Soups into normal average Joe Schmoes, he knows this, and while fighting for his life, it's like he's been nerfed. It's like he's playing on like a EU servers or something with lag. He is slow. He is not powerful. His laser eyes, which we have seen him actually cut Kimiko in half with, don't do anything to her. Like, he's not able to even like cut her in half anymore. Even though he uses his laser eyes directly on Kimiko, it doesn't like pierce her chest, cut her in half, damage her in any way. She just takes it and then gets up like she got hit with a water balloon. So why is he so much weaker now when he has V1 as well? This should be like a, Armageddon type situation, but they're treating him like a joke. And I don't mind like the final team up of Butcher plus Ryan against Homelander. I think that's very satisfying. And Kimiko being the one to have that blast, I think makes sense. I wasn't like, that came out of nowhere and feels shitty. I was like, okay, I could see that. It makes sense, especially with, Frenchie dying beforehand. I think that ties it together and works. But what doesn't work is how weak Homelander is. It feels really lame. Especially when you consider a couple scenes before their final showdown, he took a guy to space like that. It was like an instant transmission from Dragon Ball Z. He had a guy, he didn't really fuck with him, so he grabbed him, he shot up into the sky, and then came right back down, and when asked what happened, he said, oh, he's an astronaut, so I took him to space. Why couldn't he fly like that when his life depended on it? Why in the final fight, in the couple of times he tried to fly away, was it like me on a tricycle trying to get away? I don't get it. So truly, I just don't think the V1 did anything meaningful to the plot of The Boys. Like, it gets introduced at the final season here, completely changes the trajectory of everything that had been building, because now we have another new side quest, another new doodad we're gonna have to look into and stop from getting into the bad guy's hands. And even when it does, who cares? like actually, who gives a fuck? It didn't matter. I think they spent so much time on that to get Vought Rising, off the ground a little bit, put some poop in that butt, that they kind of abandoned a lot of what they were building to previously. Like, example, one of the huge things was the flight recording where Homelander just lets the entire plane die in season 1. That was going to be like their big, weapon against him in the public eye, and we built on that for fucking years. And then that gets dropped early on in the season, only to just be written off as AI immediately, which I get, like, yeah, that's an easy way out. You can just say, oh, it's AI, it's fake, and people believe it. That's what they do in the show. But why do that for this? Why build for so many years just to have them finally get to that point where they release it, and then it's only like a fleeting mention of, oh yeah, that was a Starlight AI video. Didn't happen. So it just feels like, okay, that was a waste of time and doesn't really do anything in the grand scheme of things, huh? Same with Soldier Boy. He gets put back on ice. That was the big finale for Soldier Boy in the last episode. He gets choked out and put on ice again. For the third fucking time. All they do with that character is they thaw him out. He acts wacky and silly and like tough for a little while. They can't really beat him. He talks about, you cum guzzling, jizz pirate, that kind of stuff. You butt bubbling, motorboat nut swallowing, scallywag. And then they put him back on ice when they can't figure out what else to do with him. So he just goes back into stasis. Like, come on. That's not satisfying at all. Like, it really feels like so much of this was built upon the idea that they had to find ways to keep it milkable because they have so many other boys projects already in the works. So now we've waited all this time. This is supposed to be the big finale, and yet it feels like they're still just setting up things for other things outside of the boys, which means the boys itself gets kind of strung dry and feels bland and feels like it's missing so many important components for closure. There's just so many things I didn't like about this, man. And even going back an episode, a couple episodes, Black Noir 2's death. Like, I think the breakdown of their friendship was handled well. Like, I think that was entertaining and done decently enough because they gave enough time to flesh out the Deep specifically, as well as, like, you know, his obsession with being in Homelander's good graces so he could suckle milk from Homelander's tit. And Black Noir 2 was kind of standing in his way, so they start to have the breakdown, and then he, you know, steals some of Black Noir 2's credit. That further strains it, and then it eventually culminates with him killing his acting coach, and then Black Noir ends up killing a billion fish, which the Deep is rightfully blamed for because of the oil pipeline and stuff that he was talking about, which then causes him to be excommunicado from water itself. And because of that, he kills Black Noir too, but they don't have like a real final fight or anything. He strangles him with a cord and then stabs him in the face, like in the neck. This is Black Noir 2 can fly. He's bulletproof. How the fuck is he getting choked by a cord? Like, I understand the Deep is also superhuman, so he's got strength. The cord would break. Why wouldn't you just have them like actually fight? So that way it feels like, oh, you know, this was a big deal. This was a, you know, death befitting of a character you've spent this much time with, but instead it's just a fucking whimper. He gets strangled by a goddamn ox cord and then stabs him, and that's the end of it. And then he never gets mentioned again. Black Noir 2's name never comes up again. Not once. So again, it just feels really underwhelming. Speaking of, another character, Sister Sage. Holy shit, I have never seen a character that's supposed to be the smartest character in the world be used so stupidly. Like, that character trait in other shows, like this is the smartest person ever, always leads to some really fascinating situations, and I think relies on good writing for it to work well. Here, that was just completely absent. Sister Sage at no point in this final season felt like the smartest character in the world. All she does is sit around, kind of do nothing. She then explains her goal of like, let everyone die so I can read in peace in my bunker. Like, okay, I guess. But she doesn't do anything to like actually get there using her intelligence at all. And then when she does like betray Homelander and go with the boys, she is the one that fucks everything because she, for some reason, decided to let Soldier Boy come through during the V1 transfer, and she didn't expect Soldier Boy to give Homelander the V1. Human emotion makes no sense. Love. I can't calculate it. I don't get love, which is a cliche I've seen explored and you've seen explored in other smart characters. Love, the X factor, the chemical X, no one can quite figure out the composition of it. Doesn't make any sense. It goes against logic. But it's like, why even bring Soldier Boy there in the first place? That did nothing to help with the goal of getting the V1. It just puts it in more jeopardy. So he shows up and then just does give Homelander the V1, and then she's fucking shell-shocked, and then spends the next episode just moping and watching Love Island and lobotomizing herself. And then when she does, like, dust it off after a motivational speech from Frenchie, she, like, helps one time with the experiment on Kimiko, which does actually have a big impact. But then that's it. In the final episode, she gets hit by the Kimiko, chest blast, the big beam, loses her powers, and becomes average, saying, I'm stupid like all of you, and then fucks off to Disney World, or what was it, Universal Studios, I don't remember. She went to Orlando. So, she never did anything like the smartest character in the world was only the one capable of doing. She just does, like, basically nothing except check Frenchie's work and, like, change a couple numbers around to make it actually work better. It's just so weird because you would expect the smartest character in the world to have all these plans and account for everything imaginable, and like you're always playing into their palms because they know what's coming because they're that smart. But Sister Sage, the smartest person on the planet, she does nothing but eat Taco Bell, lobotomize herself, and doesn't actually do anything with her intelligence like ever. And then just goes to Orlando and that's it. It's just such a fucking wild usage of that kind of superpower, or really not even usage of it. It's, again, just underwhelming. I like that's just the word to describe everything with this whole final season. Everything about it was just so underwhelming. And even in this final season, they still found ways to focus on shit that no one cares about. Like, why do we have it was like a 2-minute scene of two like throwaway villains sniffing each other's assholes, telling each other what they had for lunch? That's in the second to last episode, and we're spending time with that kind of shit. Like, it's so little worked about this finale, unfortunately. Like, Starlight versus the Deep. This is something that I think had been building the entire series. And the Deep, you always had the sense like, oh, maybe he'll turn on Homelander. He's constantly belittled, but it never quite sets in, and I think that works really well for his character. So then it's a final showdown between Starlight and the Deep. All the terrible shit the Deep has done. There is no redemption to be found whatsoever. And their final fight, Starlight takes him to the beach. Why the fuck would she do that? That is where, presumably, he would be the most powerful. She has no idea that the ocean now rejects him. She is not aware of that at all. Why would she choose to take the Deep to the fucking sea to fight him? That makes no sense. That's the dumbest shit imaginable. What? Why? Of course it works out because the sea does reject him, which, again, Starlight doesn't know. So she does win, like, the hand-to-hand fight, and it's an okay fight, I guess. I would have liked to see it be like a little more like emotionally weighted. Like it still felt fast. Everything felt rushed here because it's the final episode and this whole season was written as if they had like 15 episodes to go. But it does ultimately end with him getting blasted into the sea, and it has kind of a callback to how he killed Black Noir's acting coach, the director. He gets ass murdered by a sea creature, a tentacle popping up from his butthole out of his mouth, and he dies there in the sea that now hates him because he betrayed them. Starlight had no idea that was the case. Why did she take him there? That's just ridiculous. Like, that is just dumb. There's a lot more I could yap about, but I've already been going for a little while, so let's just instead focus on some of the biggest things that make this so weak. And I've already touched on one of them, but the scale of it. This was billed as the Scorched Earth final season, and I think they did a great job building up to a Homelander just snapping and going fucking insano style on the entire planet. And that's what everyone, myself included, was expecting to happen with this season. But none of that ever gets there. At no point does he go Scorched Earth. And in fact, in this, like, genocide mode Homelander, he kills less people than he ever has in previous seasons and is far less threatening than he has ever been. I don't mind that they have him be like a sniveling, temper tantrum throwing loser that everyone makes fun of and constantly calls pathetic. I think that fits really well with what they've built for this character. But the whole thing is he has snapped. He is unhinged. He is a loose cannon. But he never actually does anything Scorched Earth. There is no big, like, holy shit moment or anything like that. It actually feels like a neutered Homelander. Especially in their big final fight, which I've already blabbered about. But one other thing I want to mention is, you remember how he kills Frenchie? He basically teleports across the building right in front of Frenchie. Why couldn't he do that in the White House? Why couldn't he just start doing that speed blitzing out of there? Or just speed blitz insta-kill Kimiko, just fucking, one tap there. Like, it doesn't make sense. He had already lasered her in half earlier, and now his lasers are so weak, and now all of a sudden he's so slow he can't fly away, he can't do anything we've seen him do before in the final fight. So the final fight doesn't even feel like a big moment either. It feels anticlimactic. It feels like it was like an inconvenience. The fights with Homelander and like with Soldier Boy were better. Like, I don't want to go back into like the nitty gritty because I've already been blabbering so much, but there's just so little about this finale, and really the whole final season worked. It's just such a letdown. Anyway, though, like I said, this season does not follow through on where they were building Homelander to this global threat. He keeps like giving lip service about it, like if you're a non-believer, get ready to face oblivion and that kind of stuff, but it never happens. It gets cut short, and even leading up to that, it doesn't happen. So you just have a final season that feels like it's the the actual smallest season yet. Anyway, I do want to give a couple of mentions for things I did like in the finale. I'd already mentioned a couple of things I liked throughout the season, which again were pretty sparse, but in the finale, I did think they did a few things pretty well. Notably, Butcher. I do think they did a good job with Butcher. Aside from the final fight where he's using less tentacles on Homelander than he did on fucking Newman, he's now much more content to not really be using his powers all that much for some reason. I don't know why he doesn't really go all out with it, but whatever. I do think when Homelander gets depowered, is no longer a soup, Butcher does a wonderful job of being that boogeyman. Just early, like moments earlier, we heard Homelander say, "Do you think I'm afraid of William Butcher?" And then we see him just crying, begging Butcher not to kill him as he menacingly walks towards him, just unflinching, just diabolical. And Homelander is crying. He's saying, "I'll suck your dick. I'll eat shit on live TV, whatever you want. No, don't do it." That kind of thing, which I think is the perfect ending to Homelander. Exactly what that character deserves. Exactly where I was hoping it would go. And then Butcher does the crowbar into his skull, pops his head open, killing him. And on live TV, and everyone sees Homelander go out in a sad, pathetic, despicable whimper. And I think that was a really good ending to Homelander versus Butcher. It's just a shame that how we got there was as weak as it was, because I do think they stuck the landing on the actual killing of Homelander. I think that is exactly what it needed to be. And I think what happens next with Butcher is exactly what needed to happen. He doesn't just instantly get forgiven by Ryan and, he doesn't just all of a sudden flip this switch and now he's like the nicest guy ever. He's out mowing his lawn, waving to his neighbors and stuff like that. He doesn't get that happily ever after because William Butcher as a character is not someone who even thinks he deserves it. So I think them committing to that was the right call, where he takes the virus and he is going to finish what he started and what he always wanted to do of killing all of the soups with this virus. So he goes, he gets everything set up, he's got his finger on the trigger ready to do it, and he is confronted by Huey. And I think this standoff between Huey and Butcher is exactly where things needed to go, exactly where things had been building with a final confrontation between these two. Huey, after everything he's been through, has not lost himself. He tiptoed on that, line a little bit, but always came back to being the Huey that we had always known from the very beginning. He stayed true, which is something Butcher also makes a mention of. So Huey and Butcher, they clash, and Butcher is obviously fucking clobbering him. He is walloping Huey, and it looks like Butcher is going to follow through on killing all the soups right in front of Huey, even though Huey's like, "This is your moment. I know you still have a heart. I don't need to be your canary. I don't need to be your Lenny." But it's not working. Looks like Butcher's going to go through with it until eventually he sees Lenny and he starts to take his finger off the trigger. Huey shoots him. And Huey felt he had no choice because Butcher, it looked like he was going to do it. It looked like he wasn't going to stop. And I believe Butcher wanted this to happen. I think that's pretty clear that Butcher was hoping that Huey would be the one to finally put a stop to him as well. Like in everything that he's suffered and everything that he's done, he can't help himself. He said he wasn't going to stop, even though it looks like he was going to, but he still seems like it wanted to put Huey in this position where he had no choice but to kill him. Because I think that's what Butcher wanted as well. His way of trying to atone for the past through Huey, his view of him as Lenny and all that. I think that was a fitting conclusion for Butcher as a character as well as Huey and Butcher's relationship. I think they did that well. I'm sure people will have their issues with it, but for me, I thought that was something they actually did well there. It was everything around it that didn't quite work, especially in this season where Huey and Huey and Butcher's relationship isn't really something that's thoroughly explored or really examined all that much, aside from like a couple of mentions here and there about like, "Oh, Butcher, maybe you do have a heart because you just pet terror. That's great. Awesome. Love to see that." Like it's something that they threw into the fucking back rooms and forgot about, but it's something that had been integral throughout the series. So I think that is a fitting conclusion there. I just wish the rest of the season also built up to it better, especially in the finale. But those are two things that I do think were done well with Butcher and with Huey and Butcher at the very end. Outside of that, just there's not much. Like there really isn't. Oh Father was fine. Like I actually think Oh Father was a really interesting character, but then he just goes out like Black Bolt from fucking Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. It felt extremely quick for a character that had become such a big deal, but you know they were running out of time. They forgot that it was the final episode, so now they gotta rapid fire all of this shit. Ashley then, grows a conscience and decides to come around to help the boys, which gets them in the position to fight Homelander, which, I mean, they kind of sprinkled that seed of doubt, like maybe she'll turn, maybe she won't, even though in every other opportunity she doesn't. And then here all of a sudden she does make that decision, even though this is the one time when she turns that actually directly put her life in danger immediately because she goes into gunfire into an ambush to save them. Like, feels like if she was ever going to turn, it'd be on like one of the safer ones. But here she does make the plunge and it saves the day. Everything just happens so fast. It feels very rushed, which I expected. I think most people expected because this whole season had really dragged its feet and never really felt like we were reaching the end game. It never gets to where we were led to believe it would with Homelander going scorched earth or anything. It's just not a good finale, and it was not a good final season, unfortunately. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to yap about it, give my thoughts on it. That's really about it. See ya.